Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
This week on Muskogee Vision, we bring you part one of the Principal Chief Candidate Profiles and take a look at the California-Muskogee connection. And thanks for watching Muskogee Vision.
Thank you for asking if I support removing the blood quantum requirement for the Muskogee Creek Nation Public Office. Yes, I do. And the reason why is because my father, Elliot Ben Bruner, was a full blood. My mother, who was half, and my late brother Danny and myself, we are considered 3/4. Yet on a CDIB card, we're considered 23/32. Who made that mathematical determination? We are not Muskogee citizens only because a CDIB card says that we are either 1/2, 1/4, or 3/4. We're Muskogee citizens because we were brought up Muskogee citizens. My mom whispered in my ear when I was a baby that I was a Muskogee citizen. She taught me all my life that I was a member of the Muskogee Nation. She fought long and hard for the Muskogee values, and my mom and father also worked along with other Muskogee citizens to establish the 1979 Constitution. And unfortunately, in our Constitution, it says that if you are 1/4 or more, you are a full citizen, and that deems you adequate and qualified to run for office. If you're less than 1/4, you're not deemed qualified to run for public office. I don't think that's right, and I will support and seek a constitutional amendment to change that, because in my eyes and in my heart, if you're a Muskogee citizen, you should be treated equally. It's not right that we ask you as a citizen of the Muskogee Nation to vote for us, but because of a law or restrictions, you're not allowed to serve with us. Thank you very much.
Not at this time. I feel that this should be a decision by the citizen, and there should be meetings conducted to where it would have meetings to include citizens, the citizens at large, the churches, ceremony grounds, the communities. As you realize, this was put in place by our ancestors. So in order, if it's the agreement with all citizens, it should be decided by them.
Right now, I'm against lowering the blood quantum requirement, basically in honor of those that wrote the Constitution. Many of them were full blood. Some of them were my relatives, and in honor of them, I would have to be against it. However, there is a period of time when there's a generational process that will have to address this question. I know that there are a high percentage of people that vote that are less than 1/4. However, also on the other end, there are a lot of people that are less than 1/4 that's enrolled that doesn't really get involved in the process of electing people in terms of registering to vote. People will take the benefits and they'll enjoy the benefits that's provided by the Creek Nation, but a majority of them do not participate in the election process, and I think that has to improve as well. It is a question that will have to be certainly addressed at some point in time, because it also affects my family. So it is something that will have to be addressed in the future. But as of now, I am against lowering a blood quantum for the ability to run for public office.
I support maintaining the current standards the nation has for elected officials. And I say that because the Muskogee Creek Nation as a political entity, we have a duty to maintain our cultural identity. And so I believe there's a correlation between blood quantum and an understanding or knowledge or experience with our cultural ways. And so I'm not saying that a person with higher blood quantum necessarily has that directly means that you have knowledge of our cultural ways. I'm not saying that a person with a lesser blood quantum doesn't have that knowledge. I'm just saying that I believe that there is a correlation between the two, and without research and data, we don't really know that. We don't really know that exact answer. But I do believe that there is, those individuals, who do participate in, in various areas of our cultural practices, do have the higher blood quantum. So, and it's in our best interest as a nation to be able to maintain that cultural identity within the leadership of our tribe. We're very fortunate that we still have a lot of cultural ways, with our ceremonial grounds, with our churches, within our communities, within certain homes. We have a lot of cultural knowledge that still exists, and so we're very fortunate in that. But there could be a time where we lose that, and we hear a lot about that. We hear a lot about that we're losing our culture and our language. However, I tend to look at it in terms of, for me, this is a very exciting time for us as a people, because while I understand, it's getting less, but I feel like this is a great opportunity for us as a people to rejuvenate or even revitalize, and I know the understanding that goes along with those words, but to rejuvenate our cultural practices. We have a lot of people, we have a lot of knowledge that still exists, and so we need to create ways to educate more people on our culture and especially our language. Our language is going to play a particular part in that rejuvenation, revitalization, renaissance, whatever we want to call it, of our culture. And so, we have a great opportunity to be able to maintain that cultural identity within our tribe, within our people, within our leadership, within our elected officials. And I feel we need to tap into those resources. Not only our elders, but our youth. Our youth are doing some amazing work with the language, with how they're learning. They're discovering new ways of teaching and how they're based on how they learn. And so I've seen this because I'm in the community. I'm involved with our youth, and I've seen that within our Muskogee Youth Council that some of the participants within the Youth Council are doing some amazing work with our language, and I feel like that is, to me, that tells us that we have a vital culture and language, and so we need to be able to maintain that and educate more people in those areas, and like I said, really rejuvenate this culture within our people. And as we move forward in that area, then hopefully we'll see that this cultural identity will continue on through our leadership. And so at some point, this idea of maintaining cultural identity within our political leadership may not be an issue for all of our people. So I do stand by that to maintain our current standards within our elected officials.
At this time, I do not support the total elimination of the blood quantum. With that being said, I would be in support of the initiative petition if it gets the required amount of signatures needed to be on the ballot for a constitutional amendment, and with a 2/3 vote of the citizens saying yes, they would like to see the blood quantum removed, then yes, I would be in support of the elimination of the blood quantum, because as an elected official, that is our duty to uphold the Constitution.
I support our blood quantum of 1/4 because we have plenty of citizens that's out there 3/4, 1/2, and 1/4. So I had to support our blood quantum.
Yes, I do support removing the blood quantum, although it's a constitutional requirement right now because all of the registered voters have to be at least 1/4 blood by Constitution, that it would have to go to a vote of the people. And speaking of people, the majority of citizens right now are either 1/4 blood or less, so the majority of citizens cannot hold office at this time. So that's why I support representation of all citizens by allowing anyone who's a citizen to be allowed to run for office. And I would introduce legislation to have a constitutional question put on a ballot so that it could go to the people for that purpose. Thank you.
At the current time, and I've talked to different Creek citizens within the boundaries, outside the boundaries, at the current time, the consensus is they do not want the blood quantum required removed. And as chief, if that's what the people want, they need to have a constitutional convention and change that within the Constitution. I will support the change if that's what the people want as change for to lower the blood quantum to run for public office. So I think we need to look at how many people are below the blood quantum, how many people we have in our tribe that are below that blood quantum, so we can see how many people that requirement is impacting, how many people that requirement is leaving out. So, but if the people get together, and it is up to the people, it's not up to the chief. If they pass that and it comes across my desk to sign, then I will sign it. But currently, from the people around here, the people I've talked to, they think that we have enough people that could run for office with the 1/4 blood or more. So if you believe that this should be changed, then I do recommend that you get together, you ask the council to create a new constitutional convention to change it.
The question of do I support removing the blood quantum requirement for Muskogee Creek Nation public office, as our Constitution is very clear on the 1/4 degree blood quantum. This question was answered during the constitutional referendum, and it was very clear that it was not supported.
For several years, I've listened to people object to this requirement. Usually the ones objecting are not full citizens. However, the noise has become louder, cannot be ignored. I support a thorough analysis of the census of tribal citizens to measure accurately the breadth of this concern, rather than depend on speculation. In the event the concerns are realistic and determinable, the people must be heard. It doesn't matter what the elected officials think, believe, or feel about this issue. I obviously benefit from the current rules. However, if scales are out of balance, I would support the will of the people in making substantive change to the modification of these requirements. Finally, I'd like to also say that during the campaign, a lady asked me what I thought about the border, making our candidates live within the border. She was a full citizen that lived outside of the borders, and that's another thought that ought to be interjected in this conversation.
Thank you for asking about transparency, which is dear to me. One of the first things that I would ask for is that we pass a Freedom of Information Act. We as citizens don't just need to know about our investments. We need to know about our expenditures. We need to know where our casino monies are going. I will be transparent, and I can guarantee you that the expenditures of the executive branch and the chief's office will be online and be available to all our citizens. Transparency is what we need throughout this nation on all items, most especially expenditures. Thank you.
As you well know, transparency is a big plus for the Muskogee Creek Nation citizen, and I would incorporate the financials for the investment to the annual quarterly report or the annual report. In order to be transparent, I have to build the trust of the citizens. Thank you.
If there's one thing I'm very proud of, having served as a principal chief previously, is the fact that we were probably one of the most transparent administrations in the history of the Muskogee Creek Nation. We did an annual report, a semi-annual report that reflected where the tribes as well as the federal funding monies were going to, what programs was using those funds in a manner that it should be. There is a need for transparency of our investments. I think that's something that certainly needs to be done. I will have a plan in place, currently working with some people that are familiar with investments of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and a plan will be provided at a later time concerning this question.
With so as principal chief, one of the first things that I would do would be to evaluate all of the departments, to evaluate all of the processes that we have that are in place within the tribe. And so transparency, financial transparency of our investments will definitely need to be evaluated, possibly through a way to improve that would be to initiate some legislation, to emphasize quarterly reporting that could be disseminated through Muskogee media, through the newspaper, through social media. Get this information disseminated out to our community centers. Definitely more communication. Communication is key to any organization, and having availability to that information. That information is knowledge, and so we can easily make this information available, and like I said, either through policy or procedure, or if it has to come to it through law, that we disseminate this information in various ways.
Right now, the executive branch gives a quarterly report of the finances and the overall status of the nation. The finances are in the report, and that report goes out to Muskogee media outlet. It is in the paper, and it's also online for anyone to look at and see what the chief at the time has reported on. It's difficult to give all the information out of our investments because you also have to understand that it's a competitive market. I will give one example. Right now, our permanent fund is split 50-50 between Wells Fargo and the Bank of Oklahoma. After 2 years, we will see who has performed the best, and after those numbers are put together and we see who did the best, that investment group will have an opportunity to oversee the entire portfolio.
Well, first of all, we need to review the budgets. We need to make a timeline. We need to look at and target our funds that are a balance of that goal, and we need to make a strong review of those. The best thing itself, of course, is in businesses that we do, we also need to have a business plan. And in that business plan itself, it should show the profits and loss, of course, of that business.
I would advocate having certain financial documents made public because there are many companies that put their balance sheets, their income statements, and other type documents online for all of their constituents to see. We could have a secure site linked to our website where a citizen would be assigned a password and they could go in and access financial documents and any other documents related to our investments that would help them to get information about what's going on with the finances of the nation. We could also provide notice to all of the citizens whenever there's going to be a discussion, legislation, or any kind of committee vote made on financial investments, and then provide all the information again either through a secure website or by live streaming through a secure network. And so I believe that our nation should do a better job of providing this information to citizens, and right now there is a lot of secrecy with places like OneFire and NBNBE that could be open to the public, and by the public I mean the citizens, because we are a shareholder, we are a stakeholder in that business, and we deserve to have the information. And it's not unheard of for companies to put documents of financial interest out to their shareholders. So it's something that could and should be done and will be done under my administration. Mado.
That is a very good question. We do not have a lot of transparency of anything with the current administration, with the current council, especially on our business or our investments. Those reports should be made to the council, either in a quarterly session or a monthly meeting. It's just like any other board that I chair, any other board that I sit on. We have a secretary that gives their monthly report. We have a treasurer that gives their monthly report. Those things should be open to the public, and if the public would like to know, they need to attend those council meetings. They have committees of the council that meet prior to the council meeting. That information should be discussed there in that Business and Finance Committee meeting, and that should be put out to the public for everyone to hear and see, so you can watch it online. So if you're in Kansas, Texas, Tennessee, California, you should be able to see those. That information should be available to the people.
I believe that can be handled during the State of the Nation address, and that would be a good forum for it.
I personally was not aware I've never been asked, or I've never had anyone show an interest in the composition of the investment. We call it the permanent fund. While the Muskogee Creek Nation Constitution states that every disbursement is a matter of public record, some people might think that the investment schemes or strategies might be proprietary information. Nonetheless, the investments are the property of the people. Quarterly investment performance general presentations could be made available to anyone desiring this information. And again, I wasn't aware of huge interest in transparency in the investment account. I'm glad to see it.
The need came about is because we didn't have that connection. We have probably close to 5,000 citizens that reside in the state of California, but how are we staying connected? And that's very important, because we need a place where we can come together, you know, and that's cultural preservation, coming together, making sure that we're teaching the young, making sure we're listening to the elders, and because they're knowledge keepers. So that's what it was really about, is just to bring everybody together and just have a place where we can come and we can be Muskogee and we can be proud to be who we are, because as it stands now, people are scattered. You know, they feel the disconnect because we don't live back home in Oklahoma. And you also feel sometimes less than, because you're struggling with your identity because you have nothing to identify with. But when you have a community of people who share the same culture and language, that becomes our identity. And that's what will make us strong. I was having a conversation with someone in one of the departments. Say, for instance, if you can look at voting and say that you have maybe 800 people that are participating in the election process, but you show a population of, say, 5,000. That's the opportunity that's there. That's the opportunity that our government needs to start looking at to say, okay, let's go do a needs assessment. Let's figure out what our citizens, now I'm going to start calling us District 9, because when we are referred to as at large, we're kind of pushed to the side. I saw that when I saw the candidate profiles, we were referred to as they and them. That was hurtful. We are not they or them, we are us, period. And Creek Nation needs to take note of that people are hurting because we feel so disconnected, isolated. There's so much opportunity to improve that communication, to improve the services that we are entitled to. We need our own seat at the table. You cannot, it would be unrealistic to have the expectation that a national council seat can represent at-large or District 9 citizens. How are you able to advocate for District 9 where you have no connection? You don't know what our needs are, you have never, I would like to know what their experience is with District 9 citizens. They don't have any experience. But when you have someone, say myself, I'll just put myself in that position, I'm clearly aware of the needs because I live outside the boundaries. I know how to come here like I've been doing, advocating on behalf of California citizens. And it's just merely creating my seat at the table to say, look, this is what we're going through. These are the issues that we're faced with. How can we work together? Right now, we're currently doing Facebook Lives. I believe it's Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We're very active in providing a platform for the candidates to come in and kind of, introduce themselves, talk to us about their platform. After primary, we're going to, invite them back. But this time it's going to be more question-driven from the citizens, information that we gather from the citizens in California. We do plan to start having events, but we're trying to focus on getting through the election. Beginning of the year, our goal is once a quarter is to have a community gathering, but based on the demographics, being smart about it. One in Fresno, San Bernardino, Riverside, Los Angeles County, San Diego County, but also in those gatherings, providing more workshops. Our young girls learning how to make ribbon skirts, pucker toe moccasins, really providing that cultural relevancy that our citizens are desperately seeking right now. I'm just hoping that what we're doing in California, we inspire other District 9 communities. Because when our voices become louder, people will listen to us. My motto has been lately is that if we're not being invited to the table, we create our own table. We do that by showing up and voting. We have to participate in the voting process because what's been happening, District 9 citizens have not been really participating. We're not seeing the numbers. But when we start to rise up, that's our table. Now we will get the attention of the government to say, we want a seat at your table. What can we do? Let's talk.